What's up, everybody? Today we are reviewing comparing numbers using the greater than, less than, or equal to sign. So, as a reminder, on your screen, you have the three symbols that we're going to be working with today: greater than, less than, or equal to. And to help you learn this idea, I'm going to use my friend Mr. Alligator. Mr. Alligator's open mouth is always chomping the number that is greater. So let me give you an example. If I'm comparing the number 25 and 20, what I like to do is use my place value chart to determine which number is greater. So let's start with the number 25. When I put my number 25 into my place value chart, I see that it has two tens and five ones. And I know, using my knowledge of place value, that I can represent two tens using my base 10 blocks and five ones using five individual cubes. So now that I've represented 25 on my place value mat and I have a better understanding of what 25 looks like, now I'm going to represent 20. So let me put 20 onto my place value chart. So now that I have 20 on my place value chart, I see that 20 has two tens and zero ones, and I can represent that using two base 10 blocks. Now that I have my two base 10 blocks in the tens place, I don't have to put anything in the ones place since there's a zero. Now I'm ready to compare the two numbers. When I compare these two numbers, I see that they both have a 2 in the tens place. Now, the difference comes when we look at the ones place. 25 has a 5 in the ones place, and 20 has a 0 in the ones place. So since 5 is greater than 0, I know 25 must be greater than 20. So now that we've decided that 25 is greater than 20, let's represent that using one of the symbols we talked about earlier. Remember, I like to think of my greater than or less than symbol as an alligator that is chomping the bigger number. So when I read this, I see 25 is greater than 20, or replacing the alligator with the greater than or less than symbol, 25 is greater than 20. Notice the open mouth is chomping the bigger number. So let's try another one. Let's say we're comparing the number 11 to the number 11. The first thing that I want to do is I want to use my knowledge of place value to compare these two numbers. So since 11 has a 1 in the tens place and a 1 in the ones place, I can represent that using one base 10 block, which is worth 10, and one cube, which is worth 1. Looking at my second number, which is also 11, I know that I can represent that using one base 10 block and one cube. Now we are ready to compare. When I look at these two numbers, I see that they both have a 1 in the tens place, represented by our base 10 block, and a 1 in the ones place, represented by our cube. Can you think of what symbol we could use to compare these two numbers? Very good. We could use the equal sign. Remember, when I look at the equal sign, I like to think of the equal sign as the same as. So when I read this equation or this comparison, I read this as 11 is equal to 11, or 11 is the same as 11. So now that I've reminded you of how to use each symbol, up top on your screen, you have the less than, greater than, or equal to symbol. I'm going to give you some problems, and it's going to be your job to see if you can use the symbols correctly. So let's start with the numbers 7 and 4. Can you compare these two numbers and decide which symbol belongs in the center? Let's see how you did. So when I look at these two numbers, 7 and 4, I see that 7 has more blocks than 4. So 7 is greater than 4. So now that I've decided that 7 is greater than 4, I need to choose which symbol to use. So remembering what we talked about earlier, the alligator's open mouth is always chomping the greater number. I'm going to make sure that the symbol that I choose has the open mouth facing the greater number. So now that I put in my symbol that has the open mouth facing the greater number, I can read this comparison. 7 is greater than 4. Great work up until this point. Let's keep moving with another comparison. Let's compare the numbers 21 and 31. Can you decide which symbol belongs in between these two numbers? All right, let's see how you did. So when I look at the number 21 compared to the number 31, the first thing that I do is I look at the tens place. Now, when I look at these two numbers, I notice something interesting. 21 has a 2 in the tens place, and 31 has a 3 in the tens place. Now I know that the 2 represented in 21 is worth 20 since it's in the tens place, and the 3 in 31 is worth 30. So I know without drawing my base 10 blocks that 30 is greater than 20, or 3 tens is greater than 2 tens. Can you decide which symbol belongs in the center? Excellent work. I like how you remembered that the open mouth is always chomping the greater number. So when I read this comparison, I read it from left to right. 21 is less than 31. All right, my friends, we're almost done, but Mr. Alligator says he's still hungry and he wants one more number to eat. So let's make it a big one. We are going to compare the two numbers 65 and 64. Can you decide which symbol belongs in the center of these two numbers? All right, so let's see how you did. When I compare two numbers, I use my knowledge of place value to help me determine which one is greater. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the tens place. When I look at the number 65, I notice that it has a 6 in the tens place. So let's compare that to the tens place of 64. When I look at 64, I also see that it has a 6 in the tens place. So now that I see that both numbers have the same digit in the tens place, the next thing I want to do is move to the ones place. So let's compare the numbers in the ones place. When I look at 65, I see that it has a 5 in the ones place. Looking at the number 64, I see that there is a 4 in the ones place. So using this information, I know that both numbers have a 6 in the tens place, but 65 has a 5 in the ones place compared to 64's 4 in the ones place. So since 5 is greater than 4, that must mean that 65 is greater than 64. So to show this comparison, I'm going to make sure I put my greater than symbol in the center, and I'm making sure that the alligator's mouth is opened towards the bigger number. So reading this comparison from left to right, I read 65 is greater than 64. All right, my friends, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Happy Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to complete the math worksheet that I'm providing on Google Classroom, and keep up the good work.